Anyone who's deep into K-pop knows that the whole dark side of the K-pop training system isn't exactly breaking news. But there's been a spotlight on the sponsorship culture for trainees, revealing some seriously messed up stuff happening within these agencies. This video is diving into the shocking incidents shared by former trainees. So many K-pop trainees, especially those not under the big three agencies, have come forward about the insane debt they rack up just trying to chase their dreams. We're talking costs that can hit up to $750,000. These smaller agencies charge for everything under the sun. Vocal lessons, dance training, even living expenses. If these young hopefuls don't make the cut or debut, they can end up drowning in debt that's just impossible to escape. And let's be real, making legitimate cash while training is like finding a unicorn. So desperate times call for desperate measures, but they can also attract predators. Here enters the sponsors. These are wealthy individuals who swoop in, offering financial support and allowances, but let's not kid ourselves. There's usually a catch. According to stories from trainees, these sponsorships often lead to exploitation, where they feel pressured to engage in some seriously uncomfortable situations just to make ends meet. One of the most eye-opening moments came from an episode of PD Notebook. A former trainee shared her horrifying experience with sponsorship offers that came with a gross price tag sexual favors in exchange for financial backing. She recounted a moment from her vocal academy days. When I was attending a vocal academy, my teacher asked, "What kind of singer do you want to be?" I answered, "I want to be an idol." And my teacher responded, "Can you have a sponsor?" When I said no, my teacher straight up told me, "Then quit." This exchange highlights just how normalized these sponsorship arrangements have become in some corners of the industry. There's more to this story that we need to unpack. This former trainee shared another disturbing experience from her time in training. So picture this. She and her fellow female trainees were just in the middle of a practice session when some unfamiliar men waltzed into the room. At first, they thought these dudes were there to chat with the department head or CEO. But soon it became clear that they were there for something way more sinister. Essentially, scouting the trainees like they were at some kind of auction. One of the guys approached her with an offer. He said, "If you meet me twice a month, I'll give you 5 million won, which is around $4,400. She admitted, "I'm really conservative, but I was a little tempted for a moment when I heard that." Just think about how tough her financial situation must have been. But it's not just female trainees facing these exploitative sponsorship offers. There's also a male trainee who shared his own troubling experience. A 24-year-old revealed that his agency set him up with a sponsor, and it started off innocently enough with small allowances, like $80. $100 and $200 at first. Then, out of nowhere, she gave him a $1,000 payment. He was shocked and asked if it was okay to accept, to which she replied, "It's for you. Just take it. Don't you have things to buy?" After a few months, things took a darker turn. She started texting him, saying, "I'm so lonely lately, can you come over?" When he brought up her husband, she casually mentioned he was away on business and wouldn't be home. That's when the red flags started showing. She wanted skinship or just wanted him to hang out with her. It was clear what she was after, and he felt the pressure. Even after he received the money, he realized it was all wrong. He promised her he'd pay it back once he was successful if she'd stop these advances. But then she whipped out a transaction history, showing him how much she had given him, and said, "I gave you this much, and you dare betray me?" He found himself trapped in a web of manipulation, with a total debt that ballooned to nearly $18,000 too. $27,000, which was far more than he could ever hope to repay. He lamented, "I have nothing saved up, and I have to work, but there's no work for me to do. Sponsors have left me with nothing but debt." When these stories first broke, there was a wave of victim blaming, with people saying things like he was irresponsible for accepting such a hefty sum without thinking it through, or that he was naive for not realizing the potential consequences. But let's keep it real. Many trainees are super young and often lack the experience or awareness to navigate the industry's darker side. Accepting financial help can feel like a lifeline in an environment that offers zero support. Plus, even if they do manage to debut, their contracts usually include clauses that force them to pay back trainee costs, often with added interest. It's a cycle that keeps many trainees trapped. And let's not forget, these trainees are usually isolated from their families and real relationships that could help guide them, just like in the case of that vocal teacher who tried to tempt a girl into getting a sponsor. This whole situation sheds light on a system that preys on the most vulnerable, and it's a tough reality that needs to change. A 31-year-old former trainee, recently opened up about her decade-long pursuit of becoming a girl group idol and the regrets that came with it. She poured so much of her life into this dream, only to be left with crushing debt from all the plastic surgeries she underwent, just to look perfect on TV. It's heartbreaking to think about the lengths she went, believing it would get her ahead in the industry. She also confirmed the existence of the so-called sponsor culture, saying she had received numerous offers herself. It's wild because some trainees who gave in to these temptations did end up debuting much faster than those who stuck to their guns. Meanwhile, she watched as her former practice mates became superstars, leaving her feeling empty and lost. She ended her message by apologizing to her parents for not meeting their expectations, which really highlights how much pressure these trainees feel to succeed. Trainees give up some of the most important years of their lives training in idol dorms, all while trying not to disappoint their families or themselves. It's a heavy burden. Vivian Jo Hyun-ji, who started her trainee journey at just 19, also shared her experience. She's now a restaurant co-owner and content creator after leaving her agency. She didn't specify which one due to being forcefully asked to have a romantic relationship with a producer to advance her career. She said, the industry had a dark side and certain expectations that didn't align with my values. That kind of pressure is unreal. And it's disgusting that trainees are put in situations where they feel forced to compromise their morals just to get ahead. There's even a horrific story that gained attention a while back, shared anonymously by a K-pop idol. The story detailed how some trainees, including 3 underage girls, were taken to a bar to meet investors. They were forced to pour drinks for these men, many of whom were well over 40 years old. One powerful investor pointed out the prettiest member of the group and essentially had her picked out like some kind of trophy. This investor convinced her to go out for coffee alone, where he continuously pressured her to play with him, even offering money. When she firmly declined, he got angry and threatened her, claiming he could pick any other member. As a result, the investor took the member who had no cell phone or money with her to a sauna, where the situation escalated even further. When she woke up, he had left her $100 and a message saying he'd see her soon. It was noted that after they debuted, the CEO told the prettiest member something the investor had said about her. This anonymous idol was so terrified she couldn't reveal more, fearing repercussions from her company. Now, I want to stress that while I couldn't find any verification for this specific story, it's not an isolated incident. Other similar reports have surfaced, painting a grim picture of what many trainees endure in their quest for stardom. In another case, CEO of a K-pop agency was arrested for some truly heinous acts, including brokering female trainees from his agency. This guy got only with 20 months in prison and fined around $17,800 for his crimes. He allegedly brokered 4 of his female trainees to a wealthy businessman in Los Angeles and even faced accusations of arranging for the prostitution of another woman. But that's not the only disturbing incident. Another CEO, whose identity remains under wraps, faced serious charges for violating the Act on the Protection of Children and Juveniles from SA, as well as charges for adultery, confinement, and assault. He was accused of assaulting a 17-year-old trainee and a 19-year-old trainee at his agency's dorm. To make matters worse, he confiscated the cell phones of 3 other trainees and locked them in the dorm. He even resorted to physical violence, hitting them on the head and threatening that their parents would have to pay thousands in penalties if they tried to leave the agency or report him. It's heartbreaking to realize that these incidents are just the tip of the iceberg in the K-pop trainee system. Many of these stories go unreported, leaving countless young individuals vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. The culture surrounding K-pop training needs a serious overhaul to protect those who are just trying to pursue their dreams.